Thank you. And I will share quickly again my screen just to turn this time to South Carolina. South Carolina, as you know, it's a hub for advanced manufacturing, for aerospace and logistics. And I would like to welcome Susie Shannon, the president of South Carolina Competes, with this session about South Carolina, a gateway for business growth and global trade. So she will give us some insights and some information about how can we leverage the potential that South Carolina has for Latin American and Caribbean SMEs seeking to get into the US through this state. So, Susie, thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing your time with us. And now the floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you so much for that very warm welcome. If you will indulge me for just a moment to share my slides. I promise I won't have very many.
You should be able now. There we can see perfectly.
Really? Excellent. Thank you. So thank you again for that warm welcome and allowing us to provide some brief information on the state of South Carolina located within the southeastern United States. A little bit about our organization. We are a business nonprofit, sort of an NGO that you would think of working very closely with industry, education, workforce training providers, and local and statewide public agencies. We also have the opportunity to participate in recruitment prospect discussions with economic development organizations from across the state, working to recruit new firms to South Carolina. So, moreover, we also meet with foreign delegations from across the globe to explore ways to strengthen the bonds across our respective countries, whether it is to recruit new firms, connect suppliers and markets, and introduce resources. And that's why today we sincerely appreciate IDB and the Bid for the Americas hosting this week's productive and informative sessions to foster these mutual business opportunities and strengthen these mutual economic ties. And got a little bit of a hiccup. There we go. So our work is accomplished in three primary ways. One is the evergreen issue of preparing our state citizens for career, college, and civil life. We also indulge in a lot of research, like actionable economic impact studies, where we pat ourselves on the back and showcasing, for instance, the more than $50 billion impact of aerospace on our state's economy. But we're also quietly scratching for a problem in which to build a solution with our stakeholders. But the backbone of what we do every day is to nurture and manage industry clusters or ecosystems, such as aerospace, technology, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and logistics and supply chain. Speaking of some of our signature programs, here's an around the world of the branded clusters and initiatives that we are working on full-time today with public-private academic partners, while we also look ahead at emerging trends and issues like artificial intelligence, which we actually began proactively working toward in 2021. We first introduced the concept of industry clustering into our state's vernacular more than 20 years ago, not to get too entangled into the academic of it, but a cluster is simply a small group of related companies, to include competitors who explicitly working together to fundamentally change their cost structure, their shared marketing, their shared research, their shared vendor relationships as a direct and competitive weapon. And everything that we do is sitting on a collaborative framework across government, industry, economic development, our peer organizations, and academic. Despite our smaller geographic size relative to other U.S. states, or perhaps because of it, part of South Carolina's magic sauce is the strong relationships and collaborations across these ecosystems. Just a snapshot of some of the industry-specific and where we're seeing government, academic, and industry working together, coming together with business-to-business matchmaking events, networking events, knowledge sharing workshops, and even shared applied research projects across our multitude of our colleges and universities and our industry. To preview a selection of our state's most robust industries, Luciano, you mentioned advanced manufacturing. We're certainly very heavy in automotive and aerospace. We have, our state is home to 6 automotive OEMs, 2 aerospace OEMs, along with hundreds of components and other suppliers. I'll talk more specifically on aerospace, but just to note that automotive comprises more than 500 companies employing more than 70,000 people. No surprise, we're also running very hard inside of advanced energy, both battery electrification as well as nuclear energy. About 63% of our state's energy portfolio is sitting in with nuclear powered. Battery electrification is whether in a passenger vehicle, a freight truck, a small modular reactor, a smartphone, and we're very heavy in end-of-life recycling of batteries as well. We also have a number of automotive and aerospace composites and carbon fiber firms and automotive, aerospace, and even high-performance bicycles, or I suppose at that higher price point, they should be called cycles. And then a tremendous amount of cutting-edge related research at our university around all of these areas. Life sciences, along with energy, are 2 of the primary recruitment targets by the South Carolina Department of Commerce, our state's lead economic development agency. Of course, technology is the great enabler, impacting every sector, every company, every employee, every day. And then, of course, we view logistics as the magic sauce driving economies. Manufacturing relies on logistics at twice the rate of other sectors, whether to get raw product in or finished product out. And I will actually be highlighting logistics in South Carolina in a moment. South Carolina is very much a global home, one of the highest foreign direct investment states in the nation. We enjoy substantial foreign direct investment. We offer as a complement, strong, robust resources, whether at the statewide level or with our regional economic development alliances or our local governments. At last count, more than 1,100 operations of international firms and growing, with majority-owned foreign affiliated companies employing more than 170,000 South Carolinians, or approximately 10% of our private industry employment. I wanted to mention here just a few of the international specific resources. For instance, the landing pad, which sits inside of our South Carolina Department of Commerce. They are in the process of updating their landing pad program and their webpage, but this is a resource to assist international firms and soon domestic firms with entry to the U.S. market. It's anticipated that firms in business for at least 3 years with at least 5 FTEs and a minimum of 500,000 in annual recurring revenue will be eligible, and especially in sectors such as advanced energy and life sciences, but also mobility industry applications such as autonomous and driving systems. I would imagine firms not just good with process innovation, but also product design and engineering design will also be heavily targeted. Although this program is being reevaluated this time to be refreshed and improved, it could be resources such as understanding of business regulation, local employment and compensation, taxation, and even translation services. To continue, maybe moving from the bottom to the top with some examples of access to capital and additional resources. In addition to some of the private capital firms, angel venture, for example, housed within the state, the South Carolina also offers a variety of resources that offer technical assistance or actual funding. For example, Invest SC If you're domiciled in South Carolina, you're a C Corp, so you cannot be an S Corp or LLC. No more than 750 employees. Those current rounds are no less than 20 million right now. Apex Accelerator assists firms that do business with the government or want to do business with the government, has over 2,300 businesses within its client base currently. In fact, got that number this morning, has assisted with over 527 million in award dollars just in the last 5 years, and that's at the federal, state, and local level. So it would include Department of Defense and other federal agencies, and in South Carolina. I will speak in more detail in a little bit on our own Fraunhofer Alliance cash match funding. SC Launch is a statewide agency that also offers grant funds, applied research awards, and also capital investments, along with a relocation grant funding. Three-phase offers close hand support with select federal funding programs such as SBIR, STTR, can be a maze of forms and processes to wiggle through the raindrops in securing some of these resources. And so we actually have a statewide entity that can assist. So if you have any interest in some of these programs, I would direct you to our SE Competes website, and we'll have that at the end in a QR code. It can also make it available to you directly, and direct you to our CAP Carolina resources to include video explanations that are very short, and direct links to their web pages for more information. Population trends is an important issue right now. South Carolina sits as one of the fastest growing states and the fastest growing region within the United States. In addition to also looking at raw population numbers, we also looked at population centroid, as in where do you have to be within each state in the US to reach the most number of people in the least amount of time. From where I am currently sitting in Columbia, South Carolina, you can reach nearly 67 million people within an 8-hour drive. Georgia is slightly higher at 69 million, but we're projected to overtake Georgia. Florida does have the biggest population, but you can only reach 33.5 million people within an 8-hour drive because most of their population is sitting way down south in the peninsula. So 2/3 of the population in the US lives east of the Mississippi River. So where we're sitting now covers a majority of the population within the US when you're looking at the east and the eastern seaboard. And so why do we care about population trends? We look at it as access to people, especially within a shorter drive, access to markets, access to customers, access to workforce, access to suppliers, particularly if there is a firm with just-in-time operations and perhaps local sourcing or redundancy in local sourcing. Moving on to one of our signature industry clusters, I mentioned we've got a commercial OEM in Boeing and a defense OEM with Lockheed Martin sitting within the state. They anchor the part of the states. So we do work with aerospace OEMs and suppliers, universities, and agency partners. Together, we map out a short-run strategic plan for aerospace in the state. We recently released our aerospace cluster economic impact. No surprise, we've seen growth driven primarily by aircraft manufacturing closing in on nearly $40 billion impact, supporting 140,000 jobs across more than 500 firms. And that is in a state that is just under 5.4 million people. We also looked at our commercial service airports, particularly the Greenville-Spartanburg International Airport, which is particularly strong with air freight and closely tied to manufacturing logistics, and is positioned very nicely with connections in with Miami, Atlanta. We also have an asset with the South Carolina Technology and Aviation Center that is located in the upstate part of our state. It does include defense aerospace, specifically Lockheed Martin operations, as well as tire manufacturers and other tenants, as well as unmanned test tracks. So a lot of autonomous, a lot of mobility testing, cutting edge testing that is happening on this campus. We know that aerospace is diverse and expanding. driven primarily by accelerating expansion of suppliers since 2015, and an increase in air transportation services fueled in part by that population growth I mentioned, but also when we see spurts of e-commerce growth. And although all of aerospace and aviation took a global hit in 2021, along with passenger transport during the pandemic, manufacturing has actually recovered some of those pandemic era losses and is actually expanding. We also compared ourselves to 9 of our peer aerospace states, where we're seeing South Carolina outpace comparable states in aircraft manufacturing growth, and also a nearly 22% employment growth rate since 2019, and the highest in the nation. I mentioned logistics as being the magic sauce, particularly for manufacturing operations. South Carolina enjoys all competitive modes: rail, long rail, and short rail. Of course, over the roads with 5 interstates traversing our state, maritime with a water port, as well as 2 inland ports. And then I mentioned air freight, robust air freight activity earlier. In logistics, our study a couple of years ago found a nearly $50 billion impact with more than 150,000 workers and growing. We regularly outpace the rest of the country in logistics employment growth. No surprise when you consider economic engines like advanced manufacturing rely on logistics at the rate of other sectors, particularly when you have retail and e-commerce activity alongside. When you dig into logistics and where you see that growth occurring, it's really, and no surprise, the technology efficiencies inside of logistics that's exploding, whether it's digital freight routing, GPS tracking, AI, robotic picking, and all tend to enjoy higher wages. Again, despite about 32,000 square miles, equivalent to head math here, about 83,000 square kilometers. We've got 5 major interstate highways connecting to major freight corridors, a water port, 2 inland ports, one of which offers refrigerated operations. Our ports is a major maritime operation along the eastern seaboard and beyond. We have a deep harbor, fluid berths, quick turn times, ever-growing rail connections. South Carolina is the U.S. largest passenger vehicle and tire exporter. So speaking of technology efficiencies, we've got a more than $50 billion impact supporting 150,000 tech jobs. Those are pure tech jobs, not tech adjacent jobs, with an average wage of nearly $93,000 a year, which is about 78% higher than the state average. Notably, employment tech firms has increased more than 50% over the last 4 years. Of course, it's hard to tune out the explosion of noise of the impact of AI on operations, on education, on the workforce. I've listed a few things here that are happening across the state, which we're actually heavily embedded in this particular programming. So to rely on a Star Wars metaphor, AI can be a force used for good, but also bad, even if inadvertent. So we are talking with companies, we're talking with educators now, and trying to bridge how we make sure that we are prepared for an AI-enabled economy, but with guardrails along the way. So for instance, we talk about generative AI like ChatGPT, which is really coming up not with a factual answer, but really statistically the most likely answer. But now we're seeing a lot of execution, agentic AI, which features are now being incorporated more and more into products. Some of the emerging trends that we're seeing across the state, across the region, across the US, across the world. I've thrown up here some emergent sectors in tech, certainly AAM, UAS, as they become more technologically viable. We accompany the state delegation to the international air shows every year, whether rotating Farnborough, England, or Paris. And I covered it not this year, but last year. Someone on our team is actually a subject matter expert in aerospace who typically accompanies our delegation. And it really was about eVTOL, seeing a lot of electric vertical takeoff and landing. And so we're seeing a lot more of UAS and AAM moving to that next technology. Sorry, I had a root canal on a tooth recently. I'm just going to say tech viable. So we're also seeing a lot of digital twinning now being used, not just to hypothesize a shop floor or virtually reconstruct a new facility before you turn over the first amount of dirt, but also in worker training. And even with the projected slowdown in EVs, we'll continue to see the need for resilient energy sources and technology, especially given the growth of data centers and AI. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, we hosted an event around aerospace logistics and technology and cybersecurity. And AI was threaded into all of those discussions. And we featured a panel with Google and DC Blocks and others, really hyper-focused on grid resiliency and AI and data centers, and what we can look to see with some of the sustainability technology being developed there. We're also starting to see more mutual exploration across airports, airline carriers, aerospace OEMs, along with VC and private capital firms, to include sitting inside of South Carolina around sustainable aviation fuel. We're seeing, of course, space and defense tech exploding. B2B, business-to-business matchmaking events are currently being held across the state to support buyers and suppliers in both space and defense technologies. We'll actually be hosting one next spring in South Carolina. And lastly, here, a suite of critical technologies is disrupting. So once quantum is more widely developed and deployed, we'll have to have a major shakeup in the approach to cyber and keeping information secure. And so we actually have a dedicated initiative within the state around quantum technologies, and already seeing R&D happening at our universities there. Moving on to some education workforce, which also ties back into tax credits that are offered. Our two-year colleges are particularly strong in providing direct training and resources to employers. I've listed some of them here. Our own Transform SC initiative inside of secondary schools is focused on connecting educators and industry and helping to equip students with life skills to succeed on the job. Think discipline, teamwork, time management. Content's very important, but those durable, soft, or life skills are equally important. I mentioned actionable research earlier as one of our pillars, and to touch into this one a little more. So SC Fraunhofer USA Alliance is the name of our program in partnership with our South Carolina Department of Commerce, Fraunhofer USA, and our universities. For those not familiar with the Fraunhofer Global Network, they have 76 R&D institutes located across the globe, to include manufacturing, computer software, experimental engineer, and other institutes residing within the US. It is headquartered in Germany, but they also have institutes in Portugal, in Scotland, and spread across the world. So we go to where the research competency is located. And in a nutshell, this is a program where the state of South Carolina is offering co-investment funding for applied or industry-sponsored research. So we put in 20 to 50%, or excuse me, 50 to 80% of a research project budget. The company puts in the remainder, and then we enlist the most expert faculty within South Carolina, and pairing with a Fraunhofer Institute, wherever that expertise may be sitting across the globe, whether in advanced energy, advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence. And we build out a technical solution to a company's problem. The duration of these projects tend to run at the speed of business. We've had projects with a duration of 3 months all the way out to 18 months for a more complicated predictive sensor project. The majority of these projects to date have been in the automotive and mobility sector, but we also support life sciences and energy. For instance, we have helped with enzyme development. In the medical field, we have conducted a number of and supported a number of projects in pharmaceutical production and manufacturing. We've assisted an automotive OEM with developing out a novel AI-enabled glove to assist with quality control. Of course, advanced materials, composites, energy. We have conducted a lot of research in technical solutions development in the battery space and also with fuel cell development. I promise this is not an eye test, but just in the last 5 years, we've allocated $6.5 million to projects across more than 30 projects. And perhaps you can see on the screen here where we have attempted to categorize some of the projects and then mention specifically, for instance, with Rolls-Royce, we did a paint thickness optimization project. We have worked with JTech with fuel cells manufacturing. We have worked with BMW on predictive analysis of manufacturing. We're working now with Mercedes on machine learning and quality prediction of spot welds. In fact, we're on our second spot weld project. So you can see we have a variety of flavors. And it's designed not to produce something that you could buy off the shelf, but something that is going to be more scalable and to help you in that bottom line. You can see here and around the world of companies and universities that have engaged in our projects to date. We, at this, as not yet, have had any Caribbean or Latin American countries, firms that have participated in projects, but certainly open. If you have a presence, a tangible presence within South Carolina, it can be a headquarters, it can be a satellite operation, a sales team, then we're open to exploring with you to see if a problem which the firm would have that we can help you in building a solution and helping you co-fund that project. We also analyzed earlier this year, based upon that investment of funding of $6.5 million, and that's the state's investment of funding, the cost savings to the companies. These were all conservatively estimated. These were numbers given to us by the companies themselves. So our participating firms have gained efficiencies. They've improved their processes to approximately 1,800% in added value and impact. I will say that we have sitting on our website, which is free to access, a robust heat map of our managed aerospace, logistics, technology, cybersecurity, EV, AI firms, and training programs. So if you have a footprint in South Carolina and not currently on the map, please reach out and get on the map. We would love to showcase you, market you, and speaking of reaching out, I've included a QR code here, also my email address. And this wraps the Around the World overview. And thank you for the opportunity to present on some of South Carolina's ongoing industry program and resources. And then, Luciano, I've allowed time for questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to add to everything that you mentioned. I've been there last month, and on top of all of that, it's a beautiful place as well. So also I encourage everyone to go and visit South Carolina. And we indeed have some questions. So here, you've been answering some of the questions here are asking about the fastest growing industries beyond aerospace and manufacturing. You've been mentioning tech, AI, and some of the other
and life sciences.
And life sciences. How does South Carolina integrate Latin American suppliers into its global value chain? Do you have any activities specific tailored to Latin American companies?
So I listed we do have a number of chambers of commerce specific to demographics within the state that do offer some um, resources and connections. Both our Sacramento Department of Commerce and our South Carolina Research Authority routinely connect in with um, international firms that can provide supplier firms or recruitment opportunities into the state. I will say that our state is being a bit more selective with respect to targeting certain economic industry sectors. So life sciences, whether that's biotech, pharmaceutical production and manufacturing, also advanced manufacturing with automotive and aerospace. And then I also mentioned advanced energy, and that is primarily around battery electrification, grid resiliency, um, ancillary type of technologies, and of course, any nuclear capabilities, of course, subject to any imports and export control issues. But so that, Latin American firms that have capabilities and expertise in those industry sectors, the state does offer resources generally to offer technical assistance as well as access to capital resources. And then, of course, our Fraunhofer Alliance cash match funding is agnostic and, is also
Great.
available.
And here we have another question also related to Latin America, especially if you know, or even if you are leading any kind of trade fair, event, or activities in Latin America or the Caribbean in the coming months.
I do not know of any. I will say that a lot of our state's foreign direct investment has primarily been coming from Germany, Japan, China. I mean, we have roughly 220 Germany-based firms sitting in the state. So, and we have an office in Munich, Germany, that serves as the headquarters for our the state's European commerce operations. So you do tend to see some of the trade visits tilted, directed more toward that European market, Asian market. So I don't know of anything in the short term, um, but you know, certainly, I'm sure that the state, and we're private business led, although we work very closely with the state. I do want to make clear that I do not speak on behalf of the official state of South Carolina, but we do work closely with them and very connected in helping to connect with industry and government and academic. But if something were to be held, specific to those targeted industry sectors like life sciences, advanced energy, and, as well as advanced manufacturing, I'm sure that would be considered.
Great, awesome. And do you know about any space or activities to promote collaboration or networking between local businesses from South Carolina and international firms coming to do businesses there?
So we do host across the state a number of B2B matchmaking events throughout the year. And um, those typically focus on energy, sustainability, and resiliency, to include recycling and manufacturing, specifically automotive manufacturing, aerospace manufacturing, and as well as space technology.
So, And maybe I like this one, so I just left it for to be the last one. Because someone, Mike here, is asking, what message would you give to international companies considering South Carolina for the first time?
The first time. Well, considering we have the highest foreign direct investment in the country, I think that shows and displays a commitment and is a testament to the state's open for business approach to Latin America.
Nice. Susie, thank you so much for all your information, for everything that you share with us, for your experience, the insights about South Carolina. I think that we all now have a better understanding of the business climate there, the investment climate in the state, and everything that it has to offer to international companies seeking to enter the US market. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.